You got delayed because they were doing the boats going through the lake, huh?
Yeah.
And you got caught by the bridge.
I got by the bridge, right, down Lakeshore Drive.
The bridge went up on Lakeshore Drive and you got stuck.
Yeah, for the last 20 minutes, something like that.
Man, Dr. Warren. All right, Dr. Warren, you got to be brief. Just let me know when you got to go and do your program here in the Hyde Park or whatnot. You're a theologian. This is a theological seminary. You're a theologian, man?
Yeah, I talk about it. I bring the real, though.
You're a real theologian, huh?
Yeah.
That's why I want to ask you, Dr. Warren, how do we use, the folks at home, use the power latent in man? That's what you do, right? You are the power latent in man. How do we use that, those of us who are poor, or near poor, to get some money?
No, what you need is that, what people have to realize is that man is made up, we're made of body, soul, and spirit. We occupy three realms: the physical, the psychological, mental, and the spiritual. And the spiritual is the highest plane. And what we have now is that people have to come to the realization that within this temple or tabernacle, that there resides a spirit, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. Some call it chi from various cultures. But by turning to that and asking for it to lead and guide you, or for instructions, in the scientific world, since they don't believe in spirit, they call it intuition.
Yeah.
And intuition is the direct knowing without using reasoning, your own reasoning capacity. So in other words, people know that there is something beyond their natural. When you go to sleep, you have dreams that have foretold of who you're going to marry, or something in the future, or warn you of an impending calamity or a health problem or whatever, or you got an unction. Well, turning to that power latent within you will direct you on how to deal with this economic crisis which we're in, which the Bible itself calls, Revelation calls it Mystery Babylon the Great. It's a financial combine that seeks to enslave and impoverish the mass majority. That's why we're dealing with the third world, now the first world. We're totally impoverished as a result of the banking establishment, totally wrecking the financial system and the money system. And as a result, people are suffering greatly. They don't know what to do in such a situation like this unless they are able to turn to those powers that's latent within them to guide or instruct them. For instance, what do you should be knowing? What should we be doing now as we face this financial collapse? I mean, worldwide. And when I say worldwide, mainly it's the Europeans. That's the Americans, England, EU, and possibly Japan. The top 3 or 4 economies in the world are totally bankrupt. And that's a result of not using a correct model for what we call economics. The creation of money and capital are totally, people do not understand how or what that means. And the impact that it's going to have on their future. We talked about last week being a permanent underclass. That means you will not be able to work. The job that you have, you will just barely be able to maintain your basic living standards.
Talking about food, clothing, and shelter.
Food,
basic.
Those are the near basics. We're not talking about no type of...
Can't take no vacation, no fancy car, no fancy restaurant, none of that.
And see, the Messiah warned us. His greatest threat was the money changers. He cast them out of the temple. He called them a den of thieves. And this is what's happening. You see what happens on Wall Street. You see that there's no, basically no type of justice. Nobody went to jail. There's a continual lawlessness showing forth that America or the Western nations are morally bankrupt, financially bankrupt, and spiritually bankrupt. That's why this financial system is collapsing. Nobody wants to talk about it. The churches are totally annulled about this, but this is what they face in the next 3 to 5 years, a massive collapse of the system and a rearrangement. Whenever they reboot the system and change it, people will be permanently, 70–80% will be permanently underclass in this whole situation because they fail to take heed and understand what they need to do for themselves and for their children.
But we talked before, a lot of folks, especially in churches, we taking this on Sunday morning, they think the Messiah, meaning that Jesus is going to return and make everything right.
Well, listen, if you don't have that spirit within you now and you're waiting for something to come, you're going to be greatly let down. You're looking for something to jump out of the sky. When he told his disciples, he said, "Lo, I'm with you always." In other words, it is that spirit within you that's going to guide you through this chaos. Because we are facing a chaos of unprecedented level, and you see that even as the financial system is collapsing, you have this great thing about war. Salente, many of your world experts have come out and said that what we face is a total catastrophe worldwide as a result of the financial system collapsing. Because usually when we don't trade, goods are not exchanged, nations go to war. And few people are warning the folks of what they should do in this type of situation as they lose their jobs. Cost of living is extremely exploding, and they haven't seen anything yet. And there's nothing anybody can do about it at this point except for let the system be cleansed. And see, the Bible speaks of Jubilee, what you should be doing now. Jubilee means simply the debt is going to have to be forgiven. We tell you what's going to happen. They're going to forgive the debt, and the problem is most people are going to be wiped out. Even after they forgive the debt, their standard of living will never be able to recover. There won't be, the jobs will be very few here. You have technology that's going to replace low-skill type jobs, those type of situations. See, we had a depression before. You go back to the depression, everything, a person would go and work at Ford Motor Company or whatever when they recover. But whenever this thing recover, everything now is high-tech. And most African Americans, as a minority, they are not being trained in these high-skill type of jobs, either in trades or in terms of some type of profession that would allow them to maintain a basic living standard in this type of situation. But people go around, they are in a matrix, and they don't understand the full impact of what they're facing, because what appears to be all right is a delusion. And that delusion will come to an end.
Doctor, before I go, because I know we're running late because you got to go upstairs and do your class, how do people feel, how do poor people or working class people, how do we feel that we have the power? We can't rub two nickels together. We make it $5, $10, $20 an hour. How do we feel that we have the power to make the right decision to survive this economic collapse?
Well, see, you have to look at their examples where you take Madam C.J. Walker. In 1908, she started a business. That was a mini depression before the big one in 1929. So she said, well, what happened? She said, God told her to start this business. Well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the spirit within you, making provisions now such that you can ride the storm out and prosper on the other side, both spiritually as well as physically. And most people are not under that realization that they can call upon that power to lead and guide them. Most people are in a state of hopeless and despair, and they can't come to the realization that there is something that they can call upon within them that will direct them through this storm. As long as you're in a hopeless, chaotic situation expecting somebody like Obama or some man to deliver you out of this crisis, you're in sad shape.
But to be delivered, you have to change your ways. You have to change your habits. And that's
right.
Tough, man. Change your ways meaning change your habits.
Well,
what you've been doing the past 30, 40 years, you know.
Well, that's exactly right. But remember, conditioning is something. What I mean by conditioning, you can be conditioned, a habit can be very conditioned within you, but something traumatic can happen that can ultimately change your whole behavior. And that was a classical experience with Pavlov's dog over in Russia, where they trained these dogs to react at a bell. And every time the bell would salivate, they would give them food, and then when they didn't, they would still salivate when the bell would ring. But this is the key. When there was a traumatic experience that happened, a flood came in, flooded the laboratory, those dogs almost died. When they went back to repeat the experiment, the dogs would not react, showing forth that, listen, traumatic experiences can alter your condition. I'm saying what's going to happen if we have a depression, everybody's life standards will change. You will adjust to whatever it's required to make a living. And that's what we're talking about, what people need to do now. If you have money, you need to start saving or doing something to be able to preserve your purchasing power now. That's not going to change. I mean, things are coming out every day where nations are dead broke, and what they're doing to revitalize themselves, they are stealing money from their citizens in terms of, like you had over in Cyprus, they took the people's bank accounts. Well, they've already said in the Grant-Rodman bill, if you do your research, that if a too big the bank fails, this time they're not going to be bailed out. What they're going to do is they're going to take the depositors' funds, and recapitalize the bank. So this is how they're going to do it, and you have to be wise enough now through your own research or through the Spirit, warning you what you should do with your money and how to preserve yourself and what trades do you need in this situation. You ask them, well, what should poor folks do? Well, there's some simple things that you can do. You can save up canned foods. You can ask the spirit what trades, the basic trades that you need to do that would prevail through you. Home nursing, there's a lot of things that you can do that will enable you to survive or in this situation. Only those that have not prepared and those that are less trained and also have the psychological preparation, they will definitely fail in such situations like this.
And the middle class, they got to understand, they may have survived that last recession, but we may have another recession in a few years. They may not survive the next one.
They won't survive. This is why we said that money fails. That's why you have to have that spirit within you, or what they call God. You can call it chi, you can call it whatever you want. There's names throughout all cultures. Well, that spirit is within them, which we call the Holy Spirit or Yahshua. That spirit within them will direct them through this chaos. And what you have in churches is dogma, which is not preparing you for anything. You're going to be caught broadsided because of the propaganda that's being perpetuated by the system to sustain itself, because they know when the thing collapses, the power is lost from them. And the people will totally lose faith in them. You know, only way they maintain power, politician and money, is faith and trust in the politician. And once that has taken place, and it's going to be undermined, the level of corruption is unparalleled, probably in a modern republic of this size, since Rome.
Dr. Warren, can we come back next week, week after, and continue this talk?
Yeah, you can continue anytime.
You the man, Doctor. There you go, Doc.
Take care and be blessed.
All right, you too, Doc.
Take care.
You the man, Doc.
How you doing?